Hi everybody, it's Ashley. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm coming to you with a book review for In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. I know you guys are probably going to be really tired of hearing me talk about her, but Ruth Ware is somebody that I've recently found within the last 3 months. I think I started reading her in June, and I started with The Death of Mrs. Westaway. The Death of Mrs. Westaway, and then I read The Woman in Cabin 10, both of which completely intrigued me, kept me hooked. They were just everything. They were both my favorite book of the month in the months that I read them. And the way that this month is going, this one is going to follow suit as well. It wasn't as good as those two, but it was still very intriguing, very original, absolutely incredible book. This follows the story of a girl, a woman, named Leonora, and she goes by the name Nora. And we see her in present day, and then we kind of see flashbacks of things that happened when she was growing up. And I kind of like the non-linear type fashion of the writing. I do that myself with my own, and I just think it keeps things interesting to keep going back, keep getting little pieces to help us along the way as we go. I've always liked that type of style of writing, and she does this very well in this book. The main storyline is Nora is a writer who has gotten an email asking her to go to the bachelorette party of her childhood best friend. Her name is Claire, and in the back of her mind she keeps asking herself, why me? Why me? And she tries to ignore this email at first, only to be sent a follow-up by the maid of honor saying, you know, she really would love to see you, and it's going to be, I think it was relatively close, but not exactly close, but close enough that she wanted to see her. And it would really mean a lot to her for you guys to catch up and all of this. So she thinks it's weird because she wasn't invited to the wedding, but she was invited to this party. She emails this friend of both her and Claire named Nina and asks her if she's going. And come to find out, she's actually invited to both, to the wedding and to the party. And they kind of come up with a pact saying, if you go, I go. And they end up deciding to go together to this party. And it was short notice. Not very many people went. And so there's Claire, the bride, Flo, which is her maid of honor, and then there's a woman named Melanie and a man named Tom. And these are the people that are going to this bachelorette party. That's our cast of characters. That's a setup. And they're given directions to this cottage. It's made almost entirely out of glass. Deep back in the woods. Crazy back in the woods. It's winter time. And from the moment that she arrives, Nora feels very strange. She feels like she's on display in this house. She doesn't understand why she's there. She doesn't know why Claire invited her. She hasn't spoken to her in 10 years. She is completely lost. She doesn't really understand the stories that she is being told about Claire, because Claire was the last one to arrive. She doesn't understand what she's being told by the other guests. It doesn't seem to match up with the person that she knew. And she's just like, something doesn't make sense here. Something isn't quite right. And she is on edge from the very first moment that she walks in the door. So she decides to go for a run, thinking that she can clear her mind, get used to the idea of being here, and get away from the other guests, particularly Flo, the maid of honor, who is extremely overbearing and kind of hostile, way overprotective of Claire. If anybody says anything that's even remotely off, she will like flip out. So she wanted to take a few minutes to get away from there, get away from them, and really focus on trying to get used to the idea of even being there. And she actually runs into Claire in the driveway. And this is it's a super long driveway on her way back up to the house. And Claire offers her a ride back up to the house. They're talking. And she spits it out right off the bat. Why am I here? And Claire tells her, well, I didn't want you to hear it from somebody else, but the man that I'm marrying is James. And that is Nora's old boyfriend from way, way, way back in the day. And they did not have a good breakup. There's a big secret between them that nobody else is aware of. And we'll kind of learn bits and pieces about what happened there along the way. But that's a big reason why she moved and cut everybody out of her life, including Claire. So she is now stuck in this party, this bachelorette party for her ex-best friend who is marrying her ex-boyfriend. And she wants to appear happy for them, but even though all this time's passed, she doesn't think it's right. She thinks it's underhanded, and she still has this overall uneasiness of being here in the first place. As the night goes on, they play games, they drink, and things start getting heated. People's like real personalities start coming out, and the jokes that are played in the game cause friction among the guests. So Nora decides to remove herself from that and go to bed. And throughout the course of the next 2 days, things really, really start happening. There's an incident with the Ouija board. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about what that was about, but she keeps seeing footsteps in the snow that nobody will own up to. That it wasn't me. And then this one night, they hear noise and the back door has been left open. Everybody swears that the door was locked. And there's footsteps leading up to the door in the snow. And they don't think to check the house. They're like, oh, whoever it is gone. At least they didn't take anything. But there's still hostility among them all. Because everybody's thinking somebody left the door unlocked and they're not going to own up to it. So, and later that same night, there is a murder that, in all accounts, at first looks like an accidental death, but come to find out through police investigation, it was murder. And they have to figure out who did it, why they did it, and why ultimately one particular person is getting framed. It is so, so chilling. And Ruth Ware has always been good, at least from the books that I have read. This is the third one, of really, really mastering the plot twist. She is so, so good about plot twists. She's so good about twists and turns. She has scares in there, but they're not like crazy jump scares. Like they are legit. And she masters that so well. Like through a good chunk of this book, I was like on the edge of my seat, biting my fingernails without even realizing it, because I was just so gripped by this. Like at one point my dog barked and I actually screamed, because that's how drawn into this I was. It was so well done. And I'm going to put in a spoiler alert now, because I'm going to be going towards kind of towards the end of the video, towards the end of the book, talking a little bit about twists and turns. I'm going to try to not to go into too much detail, but there is a spoiler alert just in case I slip. So I'll put that up on the screen. So we kind of see the timelines mixed together, from her in a hospital bed and there are police guards outside the room, and she's been told that she's been in an accident, and she overhears talking saying that, oh, this is a murder investigation. So she doesn't remember most of what happened. She remembers going to the party. She remembers things leading up to this death, but she doesn't remember the things that happened afterwards. And the doctors say that it was because of the trauma. So she is desperately trying to figure out what it is she's forgetting, because she's scared. She wants to know what's going on, as anybody would in that situation. But in that, as she remembers, we are revealed things, which I think is really, really cool. So it's like we, as the audience, figure it out as she does, basically. So it's kind of goes back and forth between the hospital to the party, basically. And the actual twist, I figured out not crazy early, but I found it out before the end of the book. And I will tell you why it is that I figured it out. And it was actually pretty clever on her side, because not many people would figure this out. But in case you guys didn't know, I'm a writer as well. I write mysteries. So I tend to figure out like tiny little context clues that might otherwise be overlooked. My eye is drawn to them automatically by nature. It's very, very rare that I don't pick up on it. So I'm not faulting this at all. I actually thought it was very, very clever. Because I've heard people say they didn't see it coming. So this one detail, is the only reason that I figured this out. And that was something I didn't mention in the first part of the video. Her name is Leonora. Here in the present day, she goes by Nora. But back in her school days, she was called Lee. Mainly by Claire. But some of her other friends called her Lee too. And there's actually a struggle of people remembering to call her Nora, and her getting agitated by it. But her ex-boyfriend, the one that Claire is marrying, would call her Leo. It was like his pet name for her. Okay, so that's going to be important to this later on. So the murder, as it turns out, is the groom. He shows back up at the cottage, but nobody knows why he showed up there. And the group thought he was an intruder. Gun goes off. You can figure out the rest. It seemed accidental until the police started to investigate it. and realized that stories amongst the group weren't adding up. And at that point, it becomes a murder investigation. They're saying that he was deliberately lured there. So then you have to like figure out, well, who has the motive? Who would want to kill this man on the eve of his wedding, basically? And why would you want to frame one of your friends for it? Because there were only 5 people in that house. So, that being said, I'll go into the backstory of why Nora becomes the prime suspect. And that is because of, that is because of her messy breakup with him. All those years before, and the big secret that she had kept was that she had gotten pregnant and she had an abortion. And that's very, very sad, but that was not the driving cause behind it. It was his reaction. And like when she told him in person, like he was really, really freaked out. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And she decided to, walk away from him until he calmed down. And that night she received a text saying, "It's your problem, not mine." And she was devastated. So like she takes care of it and she left. She left school. She cut herself off from everybody because she didn't want the pity. And it's been all of these years later, and come to find out, when the police are doing their investigation, he received texts from her phone that has been missing for the majority of this party, telling him to come out there and that she needs to talk to him. So they're thinking she's bitter, she's angry that he's marrying her best friend, and that's why she lured him out there to kill him. It's just super, super chilling. And as soon as the part was revealed with the text message, that was when I figured out what happened. And it was such a subtle detail. I'm going to again put a spoiler warning here. So, spoiler warning. In the text message that was sent to her, he called her Lee. She was too distraught at the time to realize it, but he never called her Lee. He called her Leo. So when she's sitting there in the hospital and she's thinking back, trying to figure out what this missing piece is, what might help her, she remembers that message. And she's like, he never called me Leo. He never called me Lee. And that's when she pieces together what happened. So she breaks out of the hospital, and she is convinced at first that the person that's framing her is Flo, the maid of honor, simply because she has very, very erratic behavior. She is obsessed with giving Claire like the perfect party. She tries to emulate Claire very much. She dresses like her. She is just obsessive in every way. Like one person had to leave for a family emergency and like she was freaking out over it. So her behavior really seems to set the tone that maybe something happened between her and Claire, or maybe she's upset that Claire is going to be taken away from her in a sense. So that's Nora's point of view. That's her theory on it. So she wants to go back to the house to try to look for clues that Flo is the one that's orchestrating all of this to try to help herself out of the situation, and comes to a deadly, deadly confrontation, only to realize that it was not what she thought. Brilliant, brilliant book. 5 out of 5 stars. I couldn't put it down the whole time. I will say, and this wasn't enough to make me knock it down a star. It's just a little thing that I noticed and that kind of bugged me a little bit was like when they first got to the house, it was made a very, very big deal about how the outside world could look in on you, and how she felt like she was on display and like a doll in a dollhouse, basically. And somebody else said, well, they're the audience, we're the players, like basically comparing it to the theater. And the way that it was talked up, I thought that was going to be a very driving factor. I thought it was going to be important later, but nothing really came of it. I loved the comparison, but that didn't really end up getting used, and I wish it had been. But that's such a small little detail that it wasn't enough for me to like knock off a star or anything. But this is an incredible book. You've got to read it. Ruth Ware is an amazing mystery writer. I haven't read anybody that can orchestrate a story like her in a very long time. Highly recommend. So that is all that I have for you guys today. If you like this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.